Hello, my dear friends. I have a topic today which is been covered by other people, but I think we could do a bit more justice for it. And it is the topic of two by two worship, like, in terms of what is their worship services, how do they work, and so forth, and how are they different from other systems. So I figure the best way to start this is to kind of work our way up from the basic building blocks of a two by two worship system. Okay. So first of all, I'm just going to tell you the main categories, and then I'm going to go back and give more detail about each category. So the first category is the Wednesday Bible study meeting. The second is the Sunday morning meeting. Then there's the Sunday morning union meeting. There's the Sunday gospel meeting. There is the special meeting, and then there is the convention. Now, this is the standard sets of two by two worship events. In some locations, they'll have more. Okay, they might have a Friday Bible study or a Friday additional meeting, Friday evening, or even other days of the week. Okay, but what we're talking about here, this is the standard version that you would have at the bare minimum anywhere there are two by twos. Okay, so the Wednesday meeting, it's also known as the Bible study, Wednesday night Bible study, and it happens like between, let's say, 7:30 and 8:30 or something like that in the evening. It's only an hour long, and it's in the home of a two by two elder. Okay, now the elders, there's two or three kinds of elders. There's the elder who has the Sunday morning meeting, and then there's the elders who have the Wednesday evening meetings, and then there's the elders who have the Sunday union meeting. Okay. So I should tell you right now, like, why are these different elders? So elders are just the people who own the home that the meeting is in. That's the only thing. And the two by two ministers have figured out something pretty clever. That is, if you concentrate all of the eldership in one person in a particular region, um, thereafter you have created like animosity between that elder and the non-elder men. I mean, basically a rivalry, or maybe it's not overt, but it's a covert rivalry. And it also, by having the eldership dispersed between three different men, um, you effectively have given probably 70% of the men in a given region the title of eldership. So, and those men are therefore under the control of the two by two minister, in the sense that those men do not want to be demoted. They don't want to ever, get in trouble with the two by two ministers for questioning two by two ministers on something, and therefore getting their eldership revoked. Okay, so it's like you give the two by two ministers essentially giving this very small token of status to these men as being an elder of the Wednesday night meeting. It may not even be every Wednesday. I mean, maybe two Wednesdays a month rather, as opposed to, and the other two Wednesdays are at someone else's house. But this very small little piece of status is something that these men and their wives, actually, the wives, being the elder's wife, and, cling on to, and it keeps them locked into the two by two system. They don't. It's very sticky for them to try to leave. Okay, they would be dishonored if they had been demoted. Okay, so it's very important to keep in mind. So the Wednesday night meeting, the structure of it is you walk in, into a person's home. You're told in advance where these things are, and you don't have to ring the doorbell or anything. You just open the door and walk in, and you go into the living room, and there'll be a bunch of chairs seated in a circle around the living room, and you sit down and you wait until the meeting starts. Again, it might be at 7:30, and you arrive at maybe 7:25. And then the first thing at 7:30, the elder, again, the person who owns the house, would ask if anyone wants to suggest a hymn. Now the 2x2s have a hymn book, so someone in the crowd would say, like hymn number 25 or something. They would sing this hymn a cappella. There's no accompaniment, and then after the end of the hymn, they would go into prayer, which means that each 2x2 member, who's an official member, would do a prayer. Okay. Now the prayers are just totally open. You'd say something like, we pray for the workers and for the kingdom and for God's place here on earth and for the everlasting life thereafter, and pray for the workers. Okay, something like that. So each person would say something to that effect, and the last person saying something would be the elder, would do this his little prayer, and then it would end. They'd sing another hymn, maybe be ask for a number for a hymn, and then the next step would be testimony. And for testimony, again, each member who's an official member would stand up in sequence and give a little chat, reflection on something. Now, in these Wednesday night meetings, the chat is not particularly an open discussion. They are supposed to have a reflection based upon an assigned Bible reading. Okay, so at the beginning of every season, they're given a list of the Bible chapters or verses they're supposed to concentrate on for a given particular Wednesday evening. Now, these chapters, you'd think they'd be all in sequence or something like that. No, they're flipping around all over the place, and they're skipping parts of chapters. They read, say, Mark chapter 2, read verse 1 through 3, then 7 through 9, and da 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 da. So they're skipping important parts, right? What are they skipping? Well, they're skipping the parts that don't agree with 2x2 doctrine. That's what they're doing. So, in these testimonies, you're supposed to stand up and give a reflection based upon the assigned reading for that day or for that week. And the readings will be there. Always these reflections are I've just been reading the Mark chapter 2 verse 7, and it said, Jesus went to the well, and I just thought about how I want to go to the well, and I want to be where I hope the workers are at the well, and I'm so happy when I went to the well, the workers were there and they found me, something like that. Okay, it's always the reflection is always about bringing in the 2x2 experience, the 2x2 uh, doctrine of the workers and the meeting in the home and the workers without a home. Okay, that's the key thing. After the testimonies of, again, the elder will be the last person to give a testimony, and then they'll sing a hymn. The elder will suggest a hymn number, and then they disperse and have social talk for a few minutes and go home. All right, Sunday morning meeting. It's exactly the same structure: hymn, prayer, hymn, testimony, and hymn plus communion, or you might want to call it emblems. But so I'll just discuss it a bit more. The key difference, though, is in a Sunday morning meeting, they do not have an assigned reading for their testimonies. It's an open reflection, an open testimony. They can say, let's say things like, I went out to get the sheep this week, and I noticed there was one sheep that was unruly, and there was other sheep were docile, and I just want to be like the docile sheep. Sometimes I'm worried, that I am unruly, but I know I need to be docile. Boom. Okay, that's the kind of testimony they give, and it's the same process with the elders function in this Sunday morning meeting. Again, the elder is a person who owns that home, and this home, the Sunday morning meeting, will not be the same home as where the Wednesday Bible study meeting was. Now, at the last hymn on the Sunday morning meeting, which is the third hymn, the elder will pass around the bread and the grape juice. Really, it's not supposed to be wine, but it's not. It's grape juice, non-alcoholic grape juice, and this is their communion, or as they call it, the emblems. And each official member takes a little with their fingers and grabs a little piece of this bread. Now, this bread, of course, is just basically like bog standard sandwich white bread you buy in the store, like Wonder Bread in the United States, and then they take a little pinch of it, put it in their mouth, and then they take a little sip out of this Welch's grape juice that's in the glass. Okay, and if there's anybody who in this meeting who has been, let's say, reprimanded by the 2x2 ministers, they will not be allowed to participate in this. The bread and the grape juice will be passed around them, purposely passed around them. Everyone will like it's like almost like a little form of shunning. And then when the last person to take the bread and the grape juice will be the um, elder, and at that point he will take the remains of it. Of course, there's going to be some left over out of the room and do something with it. Usually, dispose of it by burning the bread that's remaining bread, or pouring the remaining grape juice down the sink or on the ground or something like that. Okay, and that's the end of the meeting. So then the third type of meeting is the Sunday union meeting. Now this happens usually the first Sunday of the month. And it's the same format as the Sunday morning meeting, but it happens in another elder's house. Okay. And these are be called union meeting elders. So that they don't have any other meeting in their house, usually just this one and the first Sunday of the month. And it's where two of the meeting groups, the normal Sunday morning meeting groups, would meet. Okay. So instead of going to the normal Sunday morning meeting, which happens, 3 Sundays of the month, on this first Sunday of the month, two of those meeting groups will meet together in a Sunday union meeting. Okay, remember there's going to be multiple Sunday morning meetings going on in a given region, because how many people can you fit in the living room? Maybe they've got 20 people max, including the children. So these union meetings are supposed to be a way of cross pollination. Okay, so but what's the real purpose? Well, it creates another elder, right? And therefore another way of keeping control. Actually, to be quite honest, if you go into a lot of communities, you'll find out that almost, like I said, almost 70-80% of the men are an elder of either Wednesday, Sunday, or Sunday union. So they've got them really hooked in. All right. The fourth kind of meeting is the Sunday gospel meeting. Now, this happens in the afternoons on Sundays, usually let's say around 3 p.m. to 4 p.m. It's 1 hour, and it's in a rented facility. So could be in like Mason's Hall, things like that, Masonic Hall, or something, some sort of building they could rent. They generally don't want to rent other churches. They want to rent sort of these other things. It's weird that they choose Masonic halls a lot, but anyways, and these meetings are supposed to be open to the public, so open to non-members. And so the 2x2 ministers will have gone around, putting little flyers, places saying that there's this gospel meeting they're holding on Sundays at say 3 p.m. in this location, and everyone's welcome to attend. Now, what goes on? Well, it's the same old structure. They got him, then they have one of the two ministers will speak, then another hymn, and then the other minister will speak. And usually they divide it up. So one minister's got about a little bit more time than the other. The second minister will have more time than the first, and the first minister is sort of the junior of the two. And then they have the final hymn. And here's the thing. So it's supposed to be a gospel meeting. So you'd say, what actually goes on? Because you'd think they must be talking about the gospel. Well, see, the 2x2s don't know what the word gospel means, really. They think it just means whatever the 2x2 ministers are saying. That's called the gospel. In fact, you'll hear 2x2 saying, I remember my grandparents professed to the 2x2, became a 2x2 in 1940 when the gospel first came to Butte, Idaho, meaning like the 2x2 ministers came to Butte, Idaho. Okay. So this is obviously confused. The gospel is not 2x2 ministers, and it's not what 2x2 ministers are saying. In fact, if you encounter, people who are Christians who have attended these 2x2 gospel meetings, many of them will tell you, I saw the flyer for the gospel meeting. I thought, well, I'm going to talk about the gospel, man. I'm interested in that. I read the Bible a lot, and I'm going to go. And they go there, and then afterwards they say, hey, you know what? There was no talk about the gospel at all. There was no gospel talking here at all. It's just mumble jumble. Well, exactly. Because 2x2s don't understand that the Gospels are the 4 Gospels of the New Testament: Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. That's the Gospels. The other books in the New Testament are not the Gospels, right? They're the epistles, and then there's the apocryphal book of Revelation. And then there's, of course, we have the Old Testament, and that is not the Gospels at all. Okay, that is not the Gospels. But the 2x2s, they think that the entire Bible, every book in the Bible, is of the same relevance. So anything that you find in the Bible, anywhere in it, Old Testament, epistles, New Testament, Gospels, Apocrypha, and you grab a line out of it and to say it, that's a gospel. Okay, so that's why you can attend these Sunday gospel meetings, and you'll the 2x2 ministers talking about Isaiah and whatever else, all kinds of other things, and it's not the gospel. Okay, now contrast that if you go to a Catholic church or an Anglican church or Lutheran church or so forth, you're always going to hear the gospel spoken, always, because it's part of the liturgy of the word. I mean, you can. There's no way to escape it. It is impossible to attend one of those liturgical services and not hear the gospel. Even to any service you go to in an Orthodox, Roman Catholic, Lutheran, Anglican, anyone, you'll always hear the gospel spoken. Always. 2x2s, no. It's actually very rare that you will hear them speak the actual something from the four gospels: Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. And this is particularly queer when you think about this is their Sunday gospel meeting, doing outreach to try to get converts, and they don't even speak about the gospel. All they do is take pieces from wherever in the Bible they want. Could be from prophets, part of the Old Testament. It could be from the history part of the Deuteronomy, or the book of laws from Leviticus or something like this, and take some pieces out of that and mix it in with 2x2 mumble jumble and pretend that's the gospel. So that's how that works. They also, at these Sunday gospel meetings, they will try to test the meeting at some point in the season to see if anybody wants to convert, okay, to join the 2x2s. And they do that by saying, if you want to join on the third verse of the last hymn of the meeting, just stand to your feet. Okay. Anyways, there's another type of meeting they have called the special meeting. Now, this is an off-season meeting, meaning off-season from their convention. So if they're in the northern hemisphere, their conventions will usually be in the summer or the autumn. So the special meeting will be in the winter or the spring. So, for example, like in, I don't know, North Dakota, they probably have special meetings in January or February. And a special meeting is just one Sunday, and it's an all-day event. And it usually goes from something like, let's say 9 to 12, and then it's like 1:30 to 4 or something like that. And they have a lunch. You bring your own lunch and you eat it in between. And this will be just a succession of hymns, and then a 2x2 minister speaking, and then the 2x2 minister speaking, and so forth. And they have some testimonies from some of the members can stand up. But the key thing here is that there's more than more than two 2x2 ministers. There could be 5, 6, 7, who generally come from that state. Where, in this case, North Dakota, there would be money from all over North Dakota, maybe Minnesota there. It's basically let's say, heavy indoctrination event, and it's not open to the public. Okay, and the whole reason is to get some of these more high-profile 2x2 ministers in front of as many people as possible to really drill home the message, right? And whereas in these Sunday gospel meeting, if in your particular region where this is going on, you're going to be stuck with the same 2x2 ministers for a whole season, and maybe you got really low quality ones. They're all low quality, but let's say these are the lower quality, don't know anything. But of course, for 2x2s, it's mandatory to attend. Mandatory. I mean, all of these things are mandatory, especially the gospel meetings and especially the Sunday meetings, Sunday morning meetings. The kind of ultimate worship event is what they call the convention. Now, these happen, like I said, in the summers or in the fall if you're in the northern hemisphere and the weather is more amicable. And this is in a purpose-built structure in a rural location. So there'll be a bunch of large sheds on a farm in a rural location that you can go in, and this lasts basically 5 days. It's a Wednesday night, Wednesday evening, then all day Thursday, all day Friday, all day Saturday, then Sunday morning and Sunday afternoon. Okay, and there'll be facilities for you to stay on the premises. Usually, there's like an open area where you can park your camper. Oh, and there'll probably be some sort of bunk houses that you could stay in, like communal bunk houses. And there's also facilities for food, like they have like a mess hall where you all eat as communal eating, so to speak. So it's really like a old time, religious convention. And what goes on? Well, it's just a expanded version of what we talked about with the special meetings. It's just hymns, then two by two minister speaking, and minister speaking, another minister, another minister. And again, then for these things, there might be 20, 25 ministers there. So that's how they're over the course of all of these days. And some of the ministers speak twice. Um, and there's also opportunity for members to give their testimonies, right? And these testimonies, it's basically like done in such a way to here's your chance to you know, show that you're fully committed to the two by two system. You get up on your feet and you get a microphone. You, you probably shouldn't speak for more than 40 seconds, 50 seconds, but you'll say something like, I'm so thankful to be here. All the good words we're getting from the ministers. And I feel the spirit here and I want to do better in the coming days. And I'm just so happy to have heard the gospel. All these words are meaningless. Okay, again, they're not. There's no gospel being heard. Um, and when they talk about the spirit is here, or I feel the spirit, or it's a spirit led. All this is what their meaning is that it feels comfortable, or like no one's fighting. Like they're all in agreement. Well, yeah, it's a cult meeting. I mean, everybody's in agreement at a cult meeting, of course, right? I mean, that's how bizarre. That's their idea, by the way, of what the Holy Spirit is. It's just all of them feeling like they're in agreement. And another thing, of course, that's totally confused. Anyways, this is the structure of the two by two worship system. It's if you think about it and go through it, you can see it's a highly structured cult indoctrination system, which leaves very little time for getting access to any kind of ideas that might get, break you out of this cult. I mean, even the interesting thing about Sunday, let me just mention this thing about the Sunday meetings or Sunday morning meeting. Like, why do they have this meeting on Sunday? Because the Sundays are pretty important to produce. They're not supposed to work on Sunday, right? And they're supposed to go to two meetings on that day. Like Sunday's a big deal. So, but here's the deal. Two by twos don't understand that Sunday is actually it's called the Lord's Day. So in other languages, like in Italian or French or in Spanish or Portuguese, it's called the Lord's Day, right? Domingo is Spanish for Lord's Day. So it just happens the case in English that we use the Germanic word Sunday, the day of the sun. But Sunday is the Lord's Day. Now, if it's the Lord's Day, why is it called the Lord's Day? Well, because the Lord resurrected on Sunday, right? Remember, Good Friday is when the Lord dies, and on Sunday, the Lord is resurrected, right? So that's why we celebrate on every Sunday, right? It's a mini Easter. Easter Sunday is replicated in a mini way every Sunday of the year. Now, the two by twos don't even celebrate Easter. They don't. They don't think Easter even exists. So why are they having their services on Sunday? Well, the reason is probably because to keep you from going to attending any normal Christian church.